All right, well, we're going to get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And one of our hotter topics, I would say, in just the sense that it comes up quite a bit, because one of the features that we're going to review today is one that is used quite often. And today we're actually going to get into the nuts and bolts almost immediately. Lots of people use care plans. And let me be very clear what I'm talking about when I say a care plan is this is not something, we're not reviewing anything clinical today. We're not talking about how to diagnose somebody or how to treat them or even speak to them about that treatment. Today, we're talking about how are you going to track the financial commitment that you put in place for the patient, as well as their scheduled visits throughout a prescribed either time frame or set number of visits. So that's the topic for today. And care plans are something that people ask about in a lot of different ways because not everybody uses them the same. I mean, Jess, you've got to come across lots of folks who use care plans different from one another. Is that pretty common?
Yes.
So today we're going to review the nuts and bolts of that care plan, how you can use it with your patient, how it's beneficial, and we'd love to field any questions that people have regarding ways that they would like to apply it. Before we get into that, just the why is something I always like to start with. Patient walks through your door and you want to help that person achieve and realize their health goals or maybe their fitness goals or both. And that patient at some point has to commit to more than one visit to make that happen. With almost every single clinician that we have in our system, one visit is never going to solve the problem. They've got to commit to changing lifestyles and changing habits, and our doctors are going to have to work with that patient and specifically coach them through and treat them multiple times to get them there. That being the case, that commitment for that type of lifestyle change can span weeks, months, and sometimes even I've seen care plans last for entire calendar years. So today, as we're going over those, we want to make sure that we understand how they're going to be charged, how they'll make payments, and then finally, how they're going to schedule those visits, coupled with how are you going to know when a care plan's off track. So we're actually going to go over all of those things today while talking about care plans. And Justin, this is where I'll ask you to start jumping in and helping us here. Is, care plans, when somebody asks how to do it, I'd like to go through basically top to bottom, creating one, setting up notifications, and then showing everybody who's on today how we would go about the workflow of where we would see those notifications and running reports. So can you start with the nuts and bolts on how to create one?
Sure. And I'm actually going to go ahead and create a new patient who will not have a care plan already created. So I'm just making up some information here and creating an account real quick.
I looked at our webinar from last week. One Control Plus might do you some good just for the way that people are seeing it. And then if anybody ever has any questions, if they could chat them in, we'd be happy to answer them. All right.
So I'm going to go into the patient's care plan tab, the CP tab. And so this care plan tab is absolutely blank. It's a new patient, never had a care plan set up before. So what you're going to do, you're going to come down to the bottom because the top part would list any care plans that are on this patient's account. And I'm going to hit the new button. Hitting this button will give me an asterisk next to each of the required fields. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to name your care plan. What I've seen many practices do is they come up with a naming convention such as how many insurance visits over how many total visits, or wellness spring 2016, that type of thing. Most practices come up with a way to name things so that by seeing the care plan name, they have a general idea of how many visits it should have and how long it should last. So that's different per practice, but that is in general what I do see. So I'm just going to go ahead and name this one 12/36/2016. So we're going to select the start date. Please be aware that the start date you can set it to go back. So right now it's the 12th of April. I can set it so that it starts on January 1st. But if I've already billed out those visits, since the patient has been coming in to see me since the beginning of January, this care plan is not going to go back and update those already existing claims. If I am really behind on my billing and those claims are still actually sitting on my roster, and I create this going back to January 1st, then when the claim is created, the care plan will attach. So the care plan attaches at the time that the claim is created. So you need to keep that in mind, not only when you're setting the date range, but also when you're filling in the visit counts, because it may be that you need to say that some of the visits have already been used because they've already been billed out. So I'm going to just go ahead and put January 1st of this year. And
do they have to select an end date, Jess?
They have to fill in an end date. I've seen a lot of practices just put it out for forever, 119999, and they can do that. However, that they will run into problems when using some of our reports, because the way you can search on some of the reports is by the start and end date. Mm-hmm. So if you have that end date out for forever, you have to have the end date on the report out for forever. Mm-hmm. And it's really difficult to get that information to come up, for one thing, and to have it be at all useful for another. So I do recommend putting realistic end dates. You can always come in here and update the end date if you need to. We have alerts, both that pop up on the schedule. We have alerts that'll pop up on the travel card, letting you know if the care plan is over based on date range. So there's really no reason not to put a realistic one. It can always be extended later if needed, if the patient, goes away for a month on vacation and doesn't use their visits.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm now going into the visit counts. So you need to fill in each of the 3 phases of visits. The care plan will always work going through all insurance visits first, then all cash, and then any free. If you go back after the fact, after, they've had their 12 insurance visits, they're now in the middle of their cash visits, and something happens and you need to go back to insurance visits, you can increase the insurance visit count, and the next claim, it'll go back to counting the insurance visits. It will always use up all the insurance visits that are in there before moving on to the others, and it will go back if you add more later.
So a point of clarification, not that anything you said wasn't 100% correct, but if somebody doesn't bill out a few visits, but they're billing out cash visits in the meantime. So you're my patient, Jess. I've got a care plan set up, and I'm billing out some cash visits right now, and I have some unbilled insurance visits. If I'm billing out cash visits, is it going to pull from my insurance visit count if there's still some insurance visits remaining?
If the insurance visits are still sitting on the roster and have not been billed out, the care plan attaches when the claim is billed. If you are billing out what you think is a cash claim, but you still have insurance visits that have not been billed out, it will count down your insurance visit counts. It will try to send them out depending on the CPT code you use. It may not be able to actually go out to insurance, especially if you're using some of our fake weld codes, but it will use the insurance count.
Yeah, it's a point of clarification I like to make, because when you're sitting there trying to come up with your care plan, we set this up for visits to be billed in order. And if you're running your practice and you're going to go back and bill out unbilled visits, please do so in order as well. And when I mean order, I mean the order that you saw the patient in chronologically by date. This will help you prevent any accounting problems that you are going to run into when the care plan does not behave the way you like to. Now, I don't like to interrupt too much to talk about how to avoid problems, but I think we've seen this one happen frequent enough to warrant mention here. So heed Jessica's words very, very carefully. I think it'll serve you well.
Okay. So now since I just created this patient account, I know I haven't billed out anything. So I'm going to leave the use counts for both the insurance and the cash blank because this patient doesn't have any other claims. I definitely have not billed out anything for this patient before. If I had, let's say maybe I'm just new to the system and I was previously using another system and I had billed out a few visits under that old system and I'm just coming over here, if I want to properly account and say, you know, they did have 12 visits in their care plan, but I've already used 5 of those visits in my previous system, I would just list how many have already been used. That way, when the care plan starts automatically incrementing each use count, it starts at 5 rather than starting at 0. Make sure your patients aren't getting extra visits billed out to insurance. Now, these dollar per visit fields are not required, but what they will do is they will limit how much can be billed to the patient. So for the insurance visits, this means that the claim goes out to insurance with your regular fee schedule, no changes. Once insurance adjudicates that claim, it comes back and there's a remaining balance that is patient's responsibility, and the care plan is attached to that claim. The system will look to see if you have a number in this field. And if, let's say, you know, the number is 36, and the balance on the claim is 45 or 40, anything over 36, the system will auto write off the balance to get it down to a max of 36. If the balance is 25, it's going to leave it alone. So this is a max amount that the patient can be billed per visit during the care plan. Most of the time, I actually find that practices leave the dollar per visit field blank on the insurance visit count. That way you're not worrying about accidentally writing off something that should have gone to the deductible or anything like that. And they just make any changes in the cash portion, the wellness care portion, and limit the amount the patient owes during that portion if they're going to limit it at all. Be aware, do not put a 0 in here unless you want the entire patient balance to be written off. I mean, I have people try to leave it blank and put zeros in there, and all the claims were written off, and they didn't know why. So that is why you want to leave it blank if you don't want it to write off anything.
So keep in mind, first and foremost, this is a financial agreement between you and the patient. So you're setting up these amounts, and you know insurance is going to pay what they're going to pay, but the patient is pretty concerned about what they're going to pay. And so you can set this up so that you don't have to worry about the write-off amounts. You don't have to worry about the adjustments. You can walk away with confidence. And then that second portion, which we haven't got to yet, which we're going to knock on here in just a second, is the notifications, the tracking, making sure that we keep this patient on track. So it's pretty important that we identify that you're setting up those financial agreements, you know, based on, 60 visits at, $20 a visit. You know how much that's going to cost, your patient. Please charge more than $20.
All right, so I'm going to, started scrolling in that field and then started putting numbers in there. All right, so I'm going to go down to the next 2 fields, which have to do with how much you collect from insurance during the insurance portion. These are optional fields, but what you can do is you can put in an expected amount that you expect to collect from insurance for the insurance portion of the care plan. That's a total amount, not per visit. Totally, for, in this case, the 12 visits for insurance, you expect to collect X amount of dollars from insurance. You put that information in this field, and then you put a date in the next field about by what date you expect to have collected all of that money from insurance. What this does is when this date comes around, if the insurance portion claims do not have amounts paid on them that equal this total amount, a ticket will get opened or a task will get opened for the team to look into the insurance claims to see why you did not get as much as you were expecting from insurance. So again, not required fields, but they are optional if you'd like them. The last field, dollars on trans. We do recommend that everyone leave this on default, or if you really want to, you can change it to yes. What this means is that all of your financing is tracked on the trans tab with the rest of the financing for anything else that the patient is having done. This means that you can provide itemized statements and all of your reports. It just tracks it all in one place.
In fact, I like the fact that you're explaining this, but for anybody listening, this better stay on yes, unless you get really specific instruction from our team to move it to no. We can't guarantee results. It's one of those legacy features that we have a few clients that they're continuing to use. It is not recommended. It is not a best practice to have this as a no. So I definitely want to make that point crystal clear. In fact, I wish we could take this out.
If we could get those legacy practices off of it, we would.
Yeah.
So just let you know, if you put this on no, we cannot provide you with an itemized balance. We are not writing up anything to give you an itemized balance.
Yeah.
Leave it on yes, leave it on default. So it is all tracked on the trans tab. And then the last thing is just the notes field. And this is information, just information you can jot down,
like a Post-it note for your care plan.
Right. It is per care plan. So if the patient has been with you for a while and they have multiple care plans, the notes are linked to the specific care plan. But I've seen, how much they've paid in bulk up front, dates they've signed paperwork, that type of stuff in the note field. But really, it's just any note you want to jot down. And I'm going to then go ahead and hit the Save button. And my care plan is now listed up at the top. Because I did not have any other existing care plan, it already made it active. If I had already a care plan that was already active, you would have to actually hit the Activate button and hit Save if this is the care plan that should be active now. So just a heads up for anyone who's updating patients who already have a care plan.
So let's recap the benefits. So far, we haven't put any visits on your schedule. This is simply putting together the number of visits in the date range that would be included, and it's going to bill certain visits to insurance, or it's going to try to bill certain visits to insurance. We need you to bill it out in order, but more importantly, the amount of money that you agreed to have a patient pay during those insurance visits, during the cash visits, or across the entire care plan will happen automatically without you having to go in and adjust what the patient has to pay. So this is going to allow you to have that conversation with that patient and really drive home, yeah, you need to get better. You've got big problems. I'm here to help you. And this is what we're going to put together right now for your entire plan of care.
All right. So now that we have our care plan visits and all of that entered in the system, let's schedule some appointments. So you can just schedule appointments just right here on the schedule, just like you do everyone else. They're coming in every Tuesday at 1 o'clock for an adjustment. You can come in here, say they're coming in for, let's say you only want to schedule the first 10, you want to schedule the whole 36, whatever it might be. Just go ahead and put in that number right here, hit make appointment. All those appointments are scheduled at Tuesday at 1 o'clock. What I do find many of our practices using instead is more make care plans. So what this does is it allows you to set up in one page the entire care plan or just a portion of it if you don't want to schedule all of it at once. What you can do is use this kind of grid to plan out the days the patient's coming in and what time. So, let's say at first they're going to come in Mondays at 1 o'clock and Wednesdays at 3 and then Fridays at 11. So all I'm doing is saying I'm under the 3X column, which means that they're coming in 3 times a week. obviously the 5 times or the 4 times or 2, how many times a week they're coming in. Once you get to the 1/2, 1/3, that's once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, and once every 4 weeks. So I have my 3 visits, and now down at the bottom, I'm going to say how many weeks this 3 visit a week schedule is going to occur. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a 4. So that's 12 of my visits right there, all counted. Now I can be done and just schedule those first 4 12 insurance visits, or I can continue and say, yep, they're stepping down after the 4 weeks of 3 times a week. They're only going to come in 2 times a week. So then I'm just going to go right into the next one. They're still going to be coming in at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays and Fridays at 11. Oops, I clicked in the wrong field.
So keep in mind, as you're scheduling these appointments, if somebody has a reminder call service or a text message reminder service, those will automatically go out. As you put all of these on there, we're going to load these, and that will be something you don't have to worry about in the future. So all of the practices out there who have that set up, as you're creating these visits, you don't have to worry about the reminders.
Right. All right. So once again, you're going to go down to the bottom and say how many weeks this goes out for. I'm just going to put in another 4 weeks for right now. And let's say you're going to reevaluate at that time just to make sure these appointment dates and times work for the patient. So I've got
20 visits.
20 visits, yeah. So on all of these, I have indicated that the physician, rather the schedule pretty much, that all of these should be scheduled on is the care plan default. If I wanted a certain visit of the week to go on a certain clinician's schedule, I can choose that instead. But all of them are going to be scheduled on the same schedule for me, and that is chosen over here on the right-hand side. I'm going to choose Dr. Joe Blue. It will start today, which is a Tuesday. So it's actually the first one that's going to be scheduling this week is for Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And I can choose what appointment it's going to be. I can even say that on the 10th visit, instead of scheduling an adjustment, schedule a re-exam or schedule anything else that you have appointment types for. And what it'll do is every visit other than the 10th one that I'm scheduling right now will be an adjustment, and then the 10th visit will be a re-exam. So I can hit finish right now. All those appointments will be scheduled, and the patient's good, or I can move on to the alerts.
One question before you move on.
Sure.
What happens if one of the appointments has a conflict? Let's just say out of the 20 appointments, next Wednesday at 3 p.m., you already have all of your slots filled for Dr. Joe Blue. How do we handle that?
Well, the system will actually try to, if it can't schedule it, let's say, Monday at 1, it'll try to schedule it Monday at 1:15. If it can't do that, it will place what is called a conflict in our system over to the left-hand side. Basically, whenever you search for that patient and bring them up at the top left, underneath those search fields at the top left of the schedule will be a red square, and it will list any dates and times that the patient's appointment is conflicting with something, whether it's another appointment or maybe one of these days the office is closed and you have a to-do block or an off block across the whole day saying that the office is closed that day. We'll also tell you if it's conflicting with something like that. And those conflicts will also show if you are on a particular day where the conflict exists, even if you don't have that patient selected.
I like asking questions that I know you know the answer to.
All right, so I can hit finish and it would create the schedules, but I'm actually going to hit next instead. This is going to bring you into the older care plan view. I chose to show you guys the new version because I'm trying to get them to update this page so it has the new version as well. but this is just our older style of how you can create a care plan with those visits and how many are used. But I'm going to just skip over this since we already created our care plan and go into the next field. This is actually an option on the care plan. If you choose to only have the care plan work to look at, to count certain types of procedures. What I see most of the time excluded from care plans are exams and x-rays. Basically what that means, it's usually only in place for practices that are using that dollar per visit field when they are limiting how much the patient can be billed. They would use this to say, all right, well, I only want the patient billed out for the 98940 or 98941, all the codes that they want the patient billed for. And then any that they do not put in here, if the patient that procedure is done with the patient, it's billed out to them, the care plan will not look at that procedure's balance to determine whether or not anything should be written off. Anything that's not in this list will be billed out to the patient at full price. If insurance paid a little bit, then it's whatever is remaining. If it's during the cash portion, then the total balance that from your regular fee schedule will be billed to the patient. So this is, again, optional. You can set it up on the practice level instead of individually. This is how to set it up individually for each specific care plan for each patient. All right, so I'm going to hit save, and it'll automatically bring me into the alerts. This is, again, our old style. So I'm actually going to show you our new version instead, but just to let you guys know, you can get to it from here. So I'm going to just hit finish because I want to bring you into our newer style. And that is going to be on the patient's Schedule tab. I know it's difficult to see with how zoomed in I am, but there is a tab here that's called Schedule. And on this page, it'll open up and it'll show me all the visits. But there is another sub-tab called Alerts that I want to click on. But if you can see right here, you can see all those appointments we just scheduled for Wednesdays at 3, Fridays at 11, and Mondays at 1. So let's go to the Alerts tab, and I am on beta. Okay. Let's go here to show them the new version. I'd be on the wrong server. All right, so this is our new version of the Alerts and Notifications page. This is the way to set it up for a patient specifically. You do, again, have the ability to set these up practice-wide under Configuration, Practice Schedule, and the Notifications tab. It looks exactly the same. This new version is currently on our App 4 server and our beta server. So to use this page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the big blue plus sign, and the screen's going to zoom in really far so I can't see what I need to do. There we go. So down here, I have a place to put in a name. This name is really only going to be seen in logs. It's just going to give us information when helping you answering some of the questions you might ask, like which alert went off or did this specific alert went off. We go by the alert name. So that's the only place that this is going to be seen.
Well, it's also good for you to know what alert it is. So the way you name it's important.
Yes. Yeah. The list up at the top portion where I hit that big blue plus sign, it's going to have all the names listed there. So rather than having to click each one to figure out which one you wanted to work on, yeah, you do want to name it something that makes sense.
Yeah, don't call it Jess's notification. You want to make sure if you're trying to put in a Medicare-specific care plan notification or a care plan, 12-visit notification like she's putting in, that's really useful. It helps you understand what you're talking about.
Yep. All right. So I gave it a name. I just called it the Care Plan Visit 12 Re-Exam Alert. And now I'm going to fill in my pop-up message. This is what will pop up off to the side here. You can see a couple alerts that are already existing for another patient. These are the alerts that come open up to the front desk when the patient checks in. So again, you want to put useful information here for your front desk, what you want them to do when this alert goes off. And I'm just going to say, save your exam. All right, so the next two fields, the patient-facing stop, this is for use with kiosks. If this is on, the kiosk will turn red when the patient checks in and alert them to see the front desk. So if this is something that you want the patient stopping by the front desk, and interesting. All right, sorry, I just lost the screen for a second. If I want the red screen, I'm going to leave this on. If I don't want, if it's nothing the patient needs to know about, it's just something that the front desk has to deal with when the patient comes in, you can turn this off and the patient can check in and have no notice at all that an alert went off. The show pop-up messages, most of the time, if you want the front desk to be doing something, actually I could say all the time,
yeah.
You want the front desk to be doing something, you want this on. This is what causes these alerts.
Scheduler notifications to pop up when the patient actually checks in.
Right. Individually, you can determine whether or not they actually pop up or whether they just go over here to the left-hand side. But if you have this off, it's going to do neither of that. It will not go over here on the left-hand side. It will not pop up to the front desk. They will have no way of knowing that an alert went off. So if this is an alert that the front desk needs to do something, you want to make sure this is on, which is the default. We go down here. There's some more options about executing a checklist.
Sorry, just somebody who's listening might be asking, well, why do you have a setting for show pop-up messages? And I wanted to give an example or two. We have lots of offices who will say, hey, today we're going to go over your social history, or today we're going to go over this, and it's only for the patient to see. They don't need the front desk people to see. So if they're using a kiosk, they'll put some sort of notification in that just is this not how it's used?
Not at all.
Okay. I'm asking because somebody might be asking.
So let me be very clear. The only message that will ever pop up on the kiosk is a pop-up that says see the front desk. None of your pop-up messages will ever be viewable on the kiosk.
Great.
What is this show pop-up messages on-off is used for is these next two settings.
Okay.
So we have the ability to execute checklists, which are groups of tasks. So for instance, on a patient's first visit, perhaps you need certain items to be done, like paperwork filled out and entered into the system, license and ID cards scanned, a tour of the office, whatever it might be. You can create a checklist in our system, configuration system task checklist. It's just a group of tasks that get opened. And you can have the system open it for you rather than having to manually open this checklist because a new patient walked in. You can have the system open that checklist automatically. And if that's just a checklist that needs to get opened and nothing really needs to be done with the patient or with the front desk, maybe it's something in the back that needs to be done, that would be an indication, that would be a reason why you would not want the pop-ups on. There's nothing for the front desk to do. So in that case, if you would say off, but you would choose a checklist. There's also the ability to create an X-doc. This is not something that's going to pop up on the kiosk. That is another feature. This one specifically, all that happens is an X-doc gets created. A certain one, and it's on the patient's account. If it is not the first X-doc that the patient had, it will pull information from a previous one if that's what your template is set up to do. X-docs are just electronic forms or documents that we have in our system, and all this does is it creates it upon check-in. Again, that might be another reason why you would want the pop-up messages off and the patient-facing stop off, because neither of those really would need to necessarily involve the patient, right, or the front desk. But in my case, I do want the front desk alerted, so I'm going to leave these both on. I don't need a checklist or an X-doc in my specific circumstances here. I'm just going to go straight down to the add rule. And we have a number of rules in our system that can help us determine when this alert, when this notification should pop up to the front desk. So we have quite a number of them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I will do is go through the care plan ones. So it starts off with add on care plan visit rule. And what happens is you say which care plan visit this should pop up for. So let's say in my instance, I wanted that 12th visit to pop up. What happens is the system, when the patient checks in, it looks to see how many have already been used. If 11 have been used, then the patient is checking in for their 12th visit because 11 have already been used. And then that would be today would be the 12th visit, this alert would pop up. Be aware that because the care plans do attach to claims, when the claim is created, you need to keep up with your billing. If you get behind and you have 2 or 3 visits on the care plan, on the roster, then it could be the patient's 12th visit, but only 9 or 10 have been actually used of the care plan so far because you have unbilled visits, and you're going to miss this alert. So with the care plan visit counts, you have to be very careful that you stay up to date, or you give yourself a couple of days notice. Maybe not on the 12th visit, pop it up on the 10th. Let them know it's coming up type thing. All right, so let's go into the next one. The next 3 are very similar, so I'll go over them together. It's just counting down instead of the total visits left, it's counting specifically for how many insurance, cash, or freight. And it's this number or fewer. I want everyone to be aware of that. So if you put a 3 on here, this alert's going to pop up on the 3rd to last, the 2nd to last, and the last insurance visit of a care plan. And same for the cash or the freight. And then we also have this one, which is the total amount of the care plan has X number or fewer. So if you don't want to break it up being, which phase it's in, it's just, they have 5 visits left, 4 visits, 3 visits, whatever.
Setting up that re-sign conversation, this is one I see used often.
Yes. The next one is usually used in conjunction with some others. You can use alerts together as long as they are both true, the alert will go off. This one is just saying if the care plan has a certain number of total visits. So in my instance, this is a 36 visit care plan. If the patient has a 36 visit care plan and whatever other rule you select is also true, then this alert will go off. It's not usually used by itself. All right, now we have one that says the care plan has X number of days left on the care plan. So this is not visits. This is how many days, as in the end date is coming up that you entered for that care plan. So I do recommend not leaving this at 1 or 2. You probably want to leave it more at 10 or 14, depending on how frequently your patient's coming in. Because again, these alerts only pop up when the patient checks in, but this is going to alert you, letting you know that there are so many days left before the end date of the care plan, in case you need to adjust the end date. This one is another one that is often used in conjunction with others. It's basing the alert off of the name of the care plan. So again, usually used in another situation if the care plan is named this and they have so many visits left or something like that.
See this one used a lot for referral sources. If somebody has a referral source from a certain doctor, they want to be notified to hey, make sure we send a thank you note or something like that.
Okay. All right. Now we have one that pops up if a care plan is between X and Y number of days old. So if the care plan was created with start dates, 60 days ago, 30 days ago, then this alert will cause the notification to pop up. So those are the care plan specific alerts. We also have one that says if the patient has no care plan active at all. That means that they do have care plans, but none of them are actually marked as active. This one will pop up. But I think that is all of the ones that are specifically care plan related.
And keep in mind that any combination of these conditions can be used together to create a rule. But Jess, I think you said it, I want to reiterate it, is if you do choose more than one condition, all of them have to be true for the notification to actually take place, correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, great. So let's recap where we're at right now. We went over how to actually construct the financial portion of it. And then we went over how to actually do all the visits and what happens if there's a conflict with a visit. And now we actually got to the crux of how am I going to be notified if somebody's, reaching a milestone within their care plan, reaching the end of their care plan, or frankly has no care plan. So these are things where we not only can notify you, but we can open tasks that will actually require action on the part of you or a staff member, because those task checklists that can be triggered can be really the only defense that somebody has to keep a patient within arm's reach if they are losing a patient and are in need of a resale of why they committed to care in the first place. These care plans are tracked a certain way, but they can also be reported in a certain way because we have care plan ledgers that allow you to do two things. Number one, see who has care plans and what the progress of those are. And then you can actually do a little bit of forecasting as far as how many visits are coming up and financials for next month, let's just say, of how much money can I expect because I have all these patients on care plans. So we can show them that. I don't want to go into too much detail because we're actually running short on time, Jess. But in this particular case, just like any patient who doesn't have a care plan, though, you can take money up front. You can put people on recurring payments, $250 a month, et cetera. And the way you're setting up a care plan doesn't require any other special steps to post the money into the care plan. You're going to run the credit cards. You're going to take checks just like you normally would, and it'll apply to visits naturally. You won't need to do anything specific. But getting into the actual ledgers here, you can see balances. The expectation one is a great one for practices, to utilize, especially our newer practices, but it applies to everyone. You sign a whole bunch of people up for care, and now you know that you've got $4,000, if all of the visits actually come in next month, in business already lined up. If everyone showed up for every visit, life would be great. We know that's not the case, but the higher the retention rate, the better. We know that. So you can see people who fall out of care plans, and today I was telling Jess about this prior to the call starting. I was having a conversation with a prospective client who I asked the question, I just don't understand a situation where you wouldn't use a care plan. Our recommendation and the best practice for most of our doctors, for patients that are going to be on continued care, is to set this up and use this tool for their financial tracking and for their scheduling. The notifications are fantastic and really will help you keep a sense of control over that patient payments as well as their scheduling. And if there is a problem, it's the best way to notify you of somebody needing to have that reconfirmation conversation. Jess, anything you want to add today?
No, I think I went over everything I can think of. I guess the only thing I can still think of, if you do use the Make Care Plan and schedule out all those visits, please be aware that if the patient does miss a visit and you already scheduled that 10th visit to be a re-exam or anything like that, you do need to manually adjust the appointment types. If they miss a visit, we do not update the appointment types. Once they're created, that's it.
Okay. Well, let's open it up right now. If anybody has any questions, we would be happy, and we've got quite a few.
All right. So
we have somebody who's been with us for quite some time who didn't know about the certain reporting needs. And if you would like to know more, we'd be happy to fill in any details. So, okay. All right. It looks like we're having more of a real-time conversation here. Somebody is very fast on the keyboard here. So I'm glad to hear that scheduling 44 visits in 20 seconds is helpful. So
Rescheduling a whole bunch.
Oh,
yes,
okay, yeah.
Let's go over that.
Great.
So if the patient lets you know, you use the Make Care plan and you scheduled out all these appointments, and then something happens and they're like, you know what, I can't make it at 3. Can we make it 3:30 or something like that? When you go into a particular day and you're going to reschedule on Wednesdays at 3 to Wednesdays at 3:30, you do get a pop-up that allows you to reschedule only the selected appointment, reschedule all the similar appointments for this patient, for this physician. We can also do it across different physicians if the patient was scheduled for, different physicians.
Schedules, yeah.
So if I chose reschedule all similar appointments for this patient in the future for this physician, what it's going to do is it's going to take all of those Wednesday appointments at 3 o'clock and make them 3:30 going forward. So that is actually very useful.
Well, thank you so much. Future appointments, great. Alerts, they do not come up till someone checks in and they are in front of you instead of being prepared prior to them coming in before we've been able to use regular stuff like exams, x-rays, exercise, fitness, etc. It's actually a pretty good suggestion. You've got, 25 visits on there, and you have to wait until somebody checks in to actually see the notification. Somebody who's on the ball here wants to know, hey, what
run
is
a report, like what alerts would go off today if the patients came in.
It's not a bad idea.
Truthfully, it's not the first time I've heard the request.
Okay.
It's just not something that we currently have.
Well, I mean, she's saying high volume.
Yeah.
I'd much rather know I've got, X number of patients, these notifications I don't have to pay attention to. But, Doc, you've got 6 re-exams today, and, a couple of them have had no-shows. You need to have a specific conversation. Or your payment, you don't have your recurring payment set up anymore. It ends, whatever. There's lots of different things that you can set up. I like that.
All right, and this one is about multiple claims. Let me just read a little bit more. Well, account is 1 because the data is the same, or account is 2 because there are 2 claims. All right, so this is going to be actually kind of dependent. If you bill out a claim, you're on the travel card, you've billed out 1 visit, but one of them's marked as cash and it splits into 2. That is still only going to count and use up 1 visit. If the patient came in twice today, maybe they saw you and they saw someone else, and 2 appointments, 2 travel cards, there's actually an option. By default, yes, it would count them as 2 visits, but we do have a setting that can change it so it only counts visits per unique service date. So if you do have the patient coming in multiple times, and it should only count once, maybe, they were supposed to have 2 things done this morning, but running late, had to come back later. Yeah. There is a setting that we can turn on in the advanced setting, so it would only count 1 visit per unique service date.
Okay. Well, thanks for the question. That's a good one.
Yeah, but if it's the specific example you did where you marked 1 as cash, the system splits that after the claim is created and after the care plan is already attached. So it only counts 1.
That answers your question. I just want to make sure. Sometimes, we're from New Jersey. We talk fast.
Yes.
Sometimes we need to slow it down a bit. If there are any other questions, we'd be happy to answer those as well. And we'll open this up to pretty much any topic at this point. So if there's somebody on the call who would like to know something in addition to care plans or anything about care plans, feel free to ask. We've got maximum 3 more minutes before we actually have to close it off and frankly vacate our conference room.
Yep. So we answered her question. She just would pretty much like to make the feature request for a report.
Yeah. I wonder how challenging that would be.
I don't know. I guess it depends on how the alerts are run, because if what happens is, when the patient checks in, then it's
the
looking,
logic, yeah.
That would be more difficult. But
I understand the argument 100%, though.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Well, I mean, for me, every night before I go to sleep, I look at my work for the next day, and that's what she wants to do. She wants to walk in knowing what she's got to do.
Yep.
All right. We use the visit type when Oh, you said goal prior to day. Okay, it's color-coded. All right, so that's one way of knowing what you have to do, but if there's somebody who's having another problem, care plan running out, something like that, you wouldn't know about it unless you actually went in and looked.
Right.
All right.
How often are these webinars and how do I register for them?
These webinars are weekly, and each week has a different topic and a different registration set up for it. So they come out in email every single week. I know we get copied when somebody gets registered. I don't know if there's a central location, actually. Right now, I believe it's only through email, Kelly.
Well, they can go to the blog.
Yes.
It is posted on the blogs.
All right.
So.
Okay, so it is posted on the blog, so you can go to any of the websites, and click on the blog portion of it and get to us.
Yeah.
Great. Also, you will be able to see reposts of these out there as well.
Yes, we do record these videos, and they are posted. It usually takes about a week or so to get up there.
A week is the typical turnaround time.
Yeah, but if you look back at last week's, by this point it should be up there. And not only when you try to register, obviously it's past, so you can't go attend it, but you'll actually get the video recording of it.
So Deanna asked if we would be able to change the appointment type coloring, for instance, based on a notification. And right now the answer is no. We're not able to change the coloring on that. Amelia, I've tried to go into the website and watch the past webinars, but having difficulty find them. Will you post a specific address? You know what?
We have her email address. I'll send her a link.
We'll send a link out. How about can we copy everybody on here? No, that's kind of hard.
Well, I was just going to pull it out of the spreadsheet of all the attendees.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, Amelia, we'll email you an address after this. But guys, we are out of time for today. I really like to thank everyone for asking the questions. I'm glad you found it. I hope you found it useful. Well, thank you for asking the questions. We like being challenged with new ideas, and so we'll think about that. And we thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.